Season 17 is here, and people really are not vibing with it. Even before the season was formally introduced to players at large, there's been a lot of talk about how the content is rather lackluster. A conversation brought to daylight thanks to a recent change that removed the non-disclosure agreement from the Insider program, basically allowing everyone to talk about anything Rare puts on the public test realm before it goes on the live servers. Look no further than Captain Falcore's video titled Season 17 Lacks Soul. He goes on to highlight both the good and the bad, but when diving into the comments, well, one of these has a lot more grounds for conversation than the other. And allow me to preface this with the following. Falcore's video is absolutely excellent. He does a great job of highlighting all the content available to insiders at the time and mostly divorces the showcase from his own opinion so that you may form your own. I'm going to be providing a link down below the like button for all of you who want to watch it, and perhaps even more importantly, have a good look at the comment section because the community sentiment is absolutely in the gutter. And that is exactly why I decided to make this video as well, because I feel like I'm in a position to provide some perhaps unique insights into the subject that have not been considered as part of this wave of criticism. That's not to say that I'm here to defend Rare, far from it, but I'm also not here to dunk on them. As is often the case, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and if Season 17 was not one in a long line of updates that left players absolutely underwhelmed, I probably wouldn't be making this video. As you might have guessed by my channel name, I'm a storyteller, so when you see me upload an essay-style video, you can be certain that it is important, at least to me. So let's get everyone up to speed. First, what is Season 17? Season 17 Smugglers Tide is the latest Sea of Thieves update introducing a brand new faction in the Smugglers. These fellas are going to task you with a very basic quest of taking contraband and moving it from A to B. While doing that, the suggested route you should be taking to accomplish that is marked on the map for everyone to see. Quite dangerous, isn't it? And what exactly are you smuggling? Repurposed ship decoration, reskinned merchant cargo, and a new variety of explosives. Yep, that's it. Just with this basic explanation, you can probably already come up with a few reasons of your own why people wouldn't be happy about it. In essence, this just feels like a reskinned cargo run from the Merchant Alliance, and the vast majority of new items introduced in this update are actually modified existing assets. So even though they are said to be new, they don't exactly feel like it. But there are more problems with this, because the Smugglers, yeah, they're not actually a faction. They don't have any reputation to earn, no emissary flag, and as such, no emissary ledger either. They do have a bunch of commendations tied to them, but that is basically it, giving off the feeling that they're not actually meant to be a permanent addition to the game world, but more of a temporary event or something to keep us busy for a few months before being tossed aside. Which is odd, because in a weird twist, all the NPCs of the pseudo-faction are fully voice-acted, and that, for Sea of Thieves, is not the norm. So you would think that they're a lot more important than the content they were assigned would suggest. So we have a faction that is not really a faction, giving out quests you have done before, featuring items you've already seen in a different color. Yeah, I can see where this is going. Let's take a look at the comment section. What is the point of Smugglers in Sea of Thieves? Who are they smuggling from? Who is blockading the ports to stop goods from coming in? This is just the merchant quest with extra steps. This comment has a total of 260 upvotes at the time of writing. Another user commented, "My biggest problem with this is honestly that the smugglers don't really make any sense in a sea that is inhabited by almost exclusively pirates. Without law enforcement, there really isn't any reason to smuggle something." 49 upvotes. And this feedback is far from isolated. There are even more comments highlighting the combination of an underwhelming recycled gameplay loop together with an open world mechanic that literally defies the in-universe purpose of that faction. Again, without law enforcement, there really isn't any reason to smuggle something. And a lot of the same points are brought up again on the official Sea of Thieves YouTube account under the content update video. But what is even more telling are the countless comments highlighting the fact that Rare simply doesn't listen. I've been an insider since 2021, and here's something important everyone should know about insiders that Rare doesn't tell you. Rare almost never listens to feedback. I can count on one hand the number of times they've changed things in the build due to insider complaints. This comment has 404 upvotes, almost twice as many as the complaint about the faction itself just plainly making no sense. Another user echoed that sentiment, writing, "Wow, yet another underwhelming season from Rare, color me surprised." The worst part is that all of the feedback we gave months ago in insiders to make the season better just fell on deaf ears, because Rare seems to literally hate actioning on player feedback unless it's just cutting something completely out. Sure, this one only has 31 upvotes, but comments of this nature are very prevalent under this video. Rare doesn't listen. Now allow me to privy you to a piece of information exclusive to Sea of Thieves partners. Rare doesn't listen to us either. There are currently two tiers of partnership. One is the regular variety and the other one is Partner Legend, of which I'm a part of, and trust me, the difference is absolutely negligible. I gave up interacting with the partner Discord a long time ago because just like many of you on the Insiders program, I always felt like Rare wasn't listening to our feedback in the slightest. So what if I told you that I was wrong? And that actually all the comments about how Rare is not listening, yeah, they're also not correct. But that does not invalidate your feedback. Allow me to explain. Now obviously, I'm not allowed to show you screenshots of the partner Discord due to NDA, which honestly I'm glad about because I would hate to have to dig up this years-old post. But a few years ago, I created what basically amounted to a PowerPoint presentation about why I think that Rare should be working on a Hunter's Call focused season. I suggested the addition of more sea monsters, an emissary flag, and a way to fight krakens and megalodons on demand. Now, as most of you will know, that Hunter's Call season was eventually made. It was not made to my specifications, but hey, at least they listened, right? Actually, more than likely, no they didn't. Making content for a video game takes a really long time. Yes, it is conceivable that somebody at Rare took this feedback, put it on the docket, and it literally did just take a few years until it was conceptualized and eventually turned into a new season. But what is a lot more likely is that Rare already wanted to make that Hunter's Call season even without my feedback. But there is something, a very specific detail I omitted from my retelling of the story, and that is the reason with which I justified why this content should be made. The PowerPoint presentation included a highlight reel of how many views my Hunter's Call videos have gotten on YouTube. They are, even to this date, some of my most watched videos on the channel, and the feedback under those videos was loud and clear. People wanted more Hunter's Call. I tell you this because the perspective from which you asked for something actually matters a lot. I didn't consider existing players, let alone veterans, in my suggestion. I cared about two things and two things only: how well this content would perform on YouTube and how much people have commented about wanting it. Because in my mind, no season is ever a good season when the content is not sellable on a YouTube thumbnail. Rare and Microsoft do very little in the way of promoting their game, almost entirely relying on us unpaid content creators to tell people how awesome the new updates are. And that's not an entirely unreasonable approach, as long as the updates are actually good. But even when the updates are good, if we can't sell them on a thumbnail, people aren't going to watch, and subsequently, they aren't going to play the game as a result of our promotion. So you can see how the things that I would want to see in the game are different from the average player or even Rare themselves, giving them a good reason to not take my feedback and implement it verbatim. Now, the reason I said that I might have a unique insight on the subject is because my channel defies the norm of other Sea of Thieves focused channels. I apologize, there's no way to talk about this without glazing myself to heavens and beyond, but the reason the Story Guide channel gets so many more views than the vast majority of SOC creators is because my audience mostly consists of people that don't play the game. I know that sounds crazy at first, but before I showed up on the scene, many creators witnessed the explosive growth of my channel, and some literally told me to my face, yeah, you'll probably cap out around 180 to 200,000 subs. There just aren't that many views in Sea of Thieves. And I proved them wrong, because their approach to content mostly appealed to people already playing the game, whereas my approach was to show people who aren't playing the game just how much fun it can be. I made a very deliberate attempt to explain game mechanics as they became relevant, and also made sure to create spectacle content viewers could enjoy even when knowing nothing about Sea of Thieves, besides the fact that it's a pirate game. Now, I don't see myself in competition with other creators. In my mind, the rising sea lifts all vessels, and with that, it was my belief that if I managed to convert more viewers into players, that would be good for the entire niche on YouTube. They would watch all of our content. The reason that context matters is because my comment section often looks very different to the one I highlighted under Falcore's video, even though both of us cover the same game. His channel is an anchor for the existing community of Sea of Thieves players to stay up to date on, speculate about, and vent their frustrations on the game. And sure, you will find people complaining about the state of the game in my comment section as well, but not to that extent. Leading me to this part of Falcore's video.
Now, I know some of you will argue, but Falcore, it's not about the content itself, it's about the story you create with that content. And although I do completely agree with you, I think it's very important that Sea of Thieves keeps on adding new features and new tools to the game, because with that kind of mentality, what would be the point in ever updating the game again if we could just make our own stories with what we have? Just some food for thought.
And there are comments supporting that notion, like this one stating, Rare are so desperate to make short-term events to keep players interacting that they completely forget a vast majority of their player base wants something fresh and new. No, I'm not highlighting this because I disagree with that stance. Once again, I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Yes, the game, being of the live service variety, cannot continue in perpetuity without some sort of new additions. But I disagree that Sea of Thieves is in desperate need of new features and mechanics. Well, depending on how you define features, I suppose. Because the feedback under my own videos was that Sea of Thieves was getting too complicated. Which, if you are a veteran, probably sounds crazy to you. And this is not to say, oh my god, they want to dumb down the game so even toddlers can play it. The point is that Sea of Thieves used to be all about immersion. Things were literally as they seemed. You picked up a gunpowder keg, it would explode. You eat a banana, it would replenish your HP. You sell a piece of treasure, you get gold and reputation. Now look at the game today. We have so many different projectiles, different kinds of foods with different effects, weapons up the wazoo, treasures that can or cannot only be sold at specific locations. Things are no longer self-explanatory. What the hell is Hourglass? What do you mean that skull makes my ship slower? Why can't I get Reaper minions to help me with an Athena quest? There are so many small things that don't make sense to new players that it all adds up to feeling complicated, especially because most of these confusing mechanics do not interact with each other. And where do you think these mechanics came from? Feedback. Because surprise, surprise, Rare does actually listen. That's not to say that your feedback about Season 17 is wrong. I also agree that them not being a real faction sucks. Them only having a merchant ripoff for a voyage is boring, and all but one item being reskins is underwhelming. But I do want to highlight that some of their decisions are made as a result of feedback. Arena was not worth maintaining anymore because not enough people were engaging with it, so they made Hourglass with the help of the community. And those who love PvP largely also love the game mode. People wanted a competitive voyage that felt high stakes akin to some of their limited time events, but permanent. So they made this Skull of Siren song just to find out that players got bored of it really fast, validating why it was a limited time in the first place. The only reason the game raises a PvP flag when you plop down a Reaper voyage is once again because of feedback, because veterans want to be funneled towards conflict. And that is probably also why the Smugglers route is being revealed on the map. In spite of it not making any sense in universe, and in spite of it being confusing to new players, they listened to feedback and wanted to provide the experience veterans are looking for. All of that is to illustrate that Rare does listen. They don't listen to all the feedback, and honestly, they shouldn't. Having somebody at the helm who has a clear vision for the game is more often than not to the benefit of it. And I believe that the reason the game feels so complicated and the reason a lot of new mechanics do not interact with each other is because they've been doing the very thing people accuse them of not doing: listening. So why does it feel like they don't? My theory is that they created so many camps of different Sea of Thieves players that it is impossible to make all of them feel heard. As illustrated by a recent video of mine where I explore every way to play Sea of Thieves, if you and I don't agree on what is the most fun way to play the game, how can Rare possibly cater to the both of us? That is in addition to people misunderstanding the point of insiders. PTR testing, as is widely known in other games, is largely used for bug and server performance testing, not for content suggestions. This stuff you leave your feedback on for insiders has literally been in the works for months before you ever got to test it. To think they can fundamentally alter that weeks or months before its planned release highlights that most of us do not know how much work it takes to make that content in the first place. Allow me to return to one of the comments I quoted earlier and read it out in full. Also, what is the point of smugglers in Sea of Thieves? Who are they smuggling from? Who is blockading the ports to stop goods from coming in? Hell, that would actually have been a cool mechanic, that your final stop is actually surrounded by ships and you have to either fight your way or sneak your way inside. This is just the merchant quest with extra steps. You see what they did there? Their feedback included not just their displeasure for the content and insiders, it also gave feedback on how they could improve it. Feedback which, within the time constraint of a seasonal update cycle, is literally impossible to execute on. I said it before and I'll say it again. Making games takes a really long time, and if the recent canning of Rare's Everwild and the lack of promotion for Sea of Thieves is anything to go by, it should be obvious that Microsoft is not giving them the resources that they perhaps would like to have. It is worth mentioning that this is what a lot of feedback towards Rare looks like. Hell, I'm guilty of it myself. Oh, this thing is underwhelming? They should just make a ton of new assets and then include a load of new mechanics never before seen in the game. Again, it is valuable feedback to Rare in that it tells them what we want to see in the game, but it's not actionable within the restraints of a season, because you can be dang sure that the stuff you see on Insiders has probably been worked on for months and months in advance, so there really is only so much they can do to change it while still hitting their deadline. And to be able to deliver these updates one after another, they need to be prepared so far in advance that any ideas generated by the community could not possibly see the light of day until a few seasons down the line from when it was suggested. Which, by the way, delaying seasons has proven been more harmful than useful in the past when looking at player accounts. So saying they should just delay it to add more stuff is basically like telling them you should just spend more money to make the same amount of money you make now. Though to be fair, I believe that their approach to cutting seasons in thirds is also more harmful than useful to the game. The idea that players will come back once a month to check out what's new does not add up with watch behavior I've witnessed on YouTube and Twitch. There's a really big hype cycle at the start of a season, which is when you'll capture the attention of most new and returning players, and anything you add later down the line kind of gets ignored until another season comes around. But honestly, I would love to hear from them why they still decide to do it this way, because they more than likely have some numbers to back up their approach. So where does this lead us? Honestly, if you were to ask for my opinion, I would say that all of us should direct our feedback a lot more the way that Falcore does, which, fair disclaimer, I don't always do myself. He acknowledges the difficulties associated with fixing the things he criticizes, he does highlight the good things as to not seem overly negative, and he targets his criticism in a very specific way, a lot more pointed towards future updates than with the intent of fixing one that is weeks or months away from release. Again, link below the like button, you should definitely check it out. With that said, definitely don't take me as a definitive authority on any of these things. Everything I said is meant to be an opinion piece, hugely colored by my own point of view and experiences. I hope that some of you found it valuable, and please take this opportunity to leave your own feedback down in the comment section below. What can Rare do better, and what do you want to see in future updates? I would absolutely love to take this to the devs and maybe even be able to host an interview with them to find out why it feels like the recent updates have not been hitting the mark that players hope for. But I'm only gonna be able to do that if we get enough traction and your comments remain civil and solution oriented. So yeah, good luck to us, gamers.